Hello, I'm Tiffany with Stitch and Addiction, and I'm excited to share this bonus video in my Becoming Jo March project series. If you're new here, I started this project in 2020 when I decided to make 7 historical outfits based on descriptions of Jo's clothing in Little Women. But this bonus video is about something other than just historical clothing. Louisa May Alcott's writing and characters have inspired me since I was 12 years old, and I have always dreamed of visiting Orchard House in her hometown of Concord, Massachusetts. In the summer of 2023, I finally did just that. Of course, I had to make a historical dress for my visit. Stay tuned to learn what dress I chose to make. My sister came with me on this trip, and we decided to make the trip all about what inspires us: literature and women of the past. We created a 2-week itinerary to visit multiple historical sites and museums in the northeastern United States. The trip from Texas to Massachusetts is about 27 hours of drive time, so we took a little over 3 days to get there, stopping in Pennsylvania to see a friend and in Vermont to check off the 49th state for me. On the 4th day, we arrived in Amherst, Massachusetts, the home of poet Emily Dickinson. It was a rainy day, which seemed appropriate for Emily. In the guided tour of the house, we learned about Dickinson's family who had lived there, saw the library with antique copies of the same books the Dickinsons used to own, and viewed Emily's own room, where she wrote so many of her poems and letters. The original piano that Emily played is still downstairs, and guests are allowed to play it. Once the tour was over, we were allowed to walk the grounds. Emily loved the outdoors and her garden, as reflected by the nature themes in so much of her writing. And it was easy to see how the peace of the garden and shade-covered lawn would have inspired her poems. Dickinson not only pushed bounds of convention with the format of her poetry, but also with the topics in her poems. Reading her poetry and learning about her life has always inspired me to explore topics from a new angle and push the bounds of creativity, and this visit to her house was no exception. It was less than a 2-hour drive to get to Concord, where we checked into our hotel. Our first stop was Barrow's Bookstore. This woman-owned bookstore curates vintage and antique editions of books, especially ones authored by the many well-known American writers from the area: Alcott, Hawthorne, Emerson, Thoreau, and more. I could have spent forever browsing the gorgeous copies of the books that have influenced me throughout my lifetime. The next day, the summer conversational series began at Orchard House. We had timed our visit so that I could attend the first day of this series. Modeled after philosophical conversations that Bronson Alcott hosted in the School of Philosophy on Transcendentalism, each year's series explores a theme featuring a variety of speakers on the topic. The original school hosted leading scholars and thinkers of the time, and today it hosts speakers from all over the United States to explore issues that are relevant to both the Alcotts and our modern times. Later that day, we headed back to the hotel so that I could get ready for an Alcott-inspired photo shoot that would have thrilled my girlish heart. I had recreated the dress seen in Alcott's 1872 portrait, and while photography is not allowed inside Orchard House, it is allowed on the grounds. I had found Ginger Snap's photography from nearby New Hampshire, and she was willing to meet me at Orchard House to capture some Louisa-inspired portraits. The next morning, we went to Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, the largest cemetery in Concord, and most importantly, the home of Authors Ridge. Authors Ridge is where all the notable authors from the area are buried. Walking the ridge took us past the Hawthorne, Emerson, Thoreau, and Alcott family plots. After leaving the cemetery, we toured Orchard House. In full tourist fashion, we absorbed the tour, asked questions, shopped at the gift shop, and took cheesy photos. Learning more about Louisa May Alcott and seeing where she wrote and lived reminded me again of the strength and courage she demonstrated throughout her lifetime. While we often admire how she used her voice and fought for equal rights, it is less known how tender-hearted she was and how she took care of those she loved. Louisa provided financially for many members of her family despite her own ongoing health issues that caused her great pain and weakness. After our tour of Orchard House, we spent the afternoon relaxing at Walden Pond. We viewed the replica of the cabin that Thoreau lived in while he wrote his literary work, then walked the trail around the entire pond, which is actually more like a small lake. The pond is open for public swimming and kayaking, so of course I had to take a dip in it. Our last stop in Concord was the public library, where alcoves for each local author hold a selection of their published work. Busts of these authors decorate the library as well. The next morning, we drove a few hours to Salem. We checked into Morning Glory Bed and Breakfast, a charming place within walking distance of everything we planned to see. Each room is named after a woman who was accused as a witch during the infamous trials. We stayed in the room named after Rebecca Nurse. The antique furniture, period artwork, and vintage books set the perfect tone for our visit in Salem. We started our sightseeing by walking the Salem Heritage Trail. This trail is clearly marked with yellow paint on the brick walks around town and guides you through the history and landmarks of the area. We saw the Corwin House, also known as the Witch House. It is the oldest house in town. Parts of it were built in the 1600s and the home of John Corwin, one of the leading judges in the witch trials. Some of the witch trials were even held here in his home. We toured the witch dungeon and saw parts of the original jail where the women awaiting trial were held. We walked through Charter Street Cemetery, the oldest European cemetery in Salem, and the Salem Witch Trials Memorial, dedicated to the 25 innocent people who lost their lives in 1692. It was a poignant reminder that in establishments ruled by religion, being different or acting outside societal norms is all the evidence required to convict someone. We ended the trail at the Salem Maritime National Historic Site, which highlights the city's extensive maritime history that is often overshadowed by the witch trials. This site includes the original U.S. Customs House, the setting in which Nathaniel Hawthorne introduces the Scarlet Letter, as well as original wharves and a replica of the tall ship, Spirit of Friendship. We returned to our bed and breakfast so my sister could prepare for her photo shoot. Several years ago, I had made her a witch costume based on a 1911 fancy dress illustration, and we wanted to capture some photos of her wearing it around Salem. During our walk on the Heritage Trail, we had scoped out the best places to take photos. We returned to the Corwin House to take photos outside, and we also stopped in Salem Common. This common area has been available to the public since the founding of Salem in the early 1600s and has seen many historic moments. Today, it is a beautiful park, perfect for photos and an evening walk. We wrapped up our time in Salem at a local restaurant on the waterfront and one last walk down the wharf. After a lovely breakfast provided by our host, we got on the road to head to New York City. Several hours later, we checked into the Algonquin, a historic hotel where notable American writers used to hang out in the 1920s, including Dorothy Parker, Gertrude Stein, William Faulkner, and Sinclair Lewis. These writers and others met often for lunch and shared stimulating conversation. This became known as the Algonquin Round Table. The hotel is located not far from Times Square, so it allowed us to easily walk or catch a subway to the many sites we wanted to see. The first site we headed to was the Tenement Museum. In my girlhood, I had fallen in love with the book series All of a Kind Family. This series features a Jewish family living in the tenements of New York at the turn of the century. We chose Day in the Life 1902 tour because it was about the same era as the setting for All of a Kind Family. We saw a typical tenement apartment restored as it would have been in 1902 and learned about how families not only lived in that small space, but also often ran their own business in the same small space. The next morning, we started our day with a stop in Bryant Park for coffee and pastries. As a fan of the show Project Runway, it was inspiring to simply be in a place where so many creative works had been on display. From there, we headed to the garment district because I just had to see Mood Fabrics in person. Back in 2021, a museum called the Garibaldi Miucci Museum in Staten Island had reached out to me and asked me to make a dress for a display. The museum chronicles the lives of two Italians, General Giuseppe Garibaldi and Antonio Miucci. Garibaldi's military skill led him to become an international symbol of revolutionary nationalism, and his army wore a red blouse as part of their uniform. This Garibaldi blouse was later adopted by American women as fashionable during the Civil War. The dress I had made was on a model representing Esther Miucci, Antonio's wife. The Miuccis were Italian Americans. Antonio was an inventor and Esther a seamstress. Our last event in New York was finally getting to attend the Bridgerton experience. We had been wanting to see this since it had debuted, but it had not come to any cities close to Dallas. When we planned the trip and realized the experience would be in New York City, while we were there, we just had to go. We donned our season 2 Bridgerton outfits, mine inspired by Lady Violet Bridgerton and my sister's inspired by Eloise, and caught the subway again. We had fun with the photo opportunities and dancing before heading back to the hotel to pack and prepare for our long drive home the next day. I hope you enjoyed coming along on this trip with me, and like me, are inspired by the depth and creativity of Dickinson, the courage and tenderness of Alcott, the leadership of General Garibaldi, and to use your voice and abilities to make the world a better place for all people. If you would like your own made-to-measure historical garment, shop with the link below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Special thanks to Dixie DIY for filming and editing today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.